Okay, this is part two. I'm just gonna just pick up where I left off. This is when the wrestlers came into, because they basically thought about it, was like, hey, I'm a wrestler, I can just learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I can learn submission wrestling, learn how to defend myself. I already have an advantage at taking them down, because I can definitely take down these Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. They're not as strong as me, because these guys were stronger, bigger, faster, more athletic, and even in their primitive striking, if they caught you, you were going to get knocked out. So this is when MMA started to become MMA. First of all, become mixed martial arts, when they mixed in the little bit of wrestling that was coming from these wrestlers, coming in from the inspiration of the shoot fighters, the Ken Shamrocks, the Dan Severns. You know, and once they brought these in and they started bringing their wrestling into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and submission grappling, then it became what is known as mixed martial arts. Then it became a little bit more popular, because you start seeing more knockouts, because like I said, the striking was primitive, but if they hit you, you were going down. And then the more stronger, faster, quicker wrestlers were getting in dominant positions because of their wrestling ability, adding something to you know, the foundation. And remember, like I said, part of why you know what I'm saying, we already talked about the advantages that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu had in the first ones, because they were already into that culture, they already had experience, they had already experimented with fighting against grapplers, and also grappling, like I have told you before, is more practical. It's more practical, okay? You know what I'm saying? It's more practical. It's more easier to be effective at, okay? And you know, so there's less room for error. But like I said, but it's definitely not the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely just one piece of the puzzle. But anyway, let's get back to that. So this is when it became a mixed martial art. This is when they were getting more dominant positions, because they were adding their wrestling into this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So they were adding more dominant positions because they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. This is where ground and pound has come into, and this is when it became popular. People are seeing people getting their ass kicked, people getting knocked out. And this is when the evolution even pushed Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the next level, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners weren't big and stuff like that. They weren't really, you know, they weren't into the strength and conditioning aspect like the wrestlers were. So they had to learn to up their antes, and then this is when you get your Vanderlei Silvas and you know what I'm saying, your Shoguns and the top teams and stuff like that, who are really starting to get into the deep strengthening conditioning and stuff like that. But this is when they dominated. The wrestlers dominated. Now, and this perpetuated the myth that these wrestling, grappling arts were superior to these other strikers. This was real fighting, you know what I'm saying? And the less strikers that come into it, it just perpetuated this falsehood. Now, even like I said, Muay Thai and kickboxing were considered ineffective until a man named Maurice Smith came around. Maurice Smith, a Muay Thai champion, world champion, and kickboxing champion, came in, and of course his first UFC, he lost to a grappler because he didn't have the experience on the ground. He went back. What did he do? I'll add in some takedown defense. I'll add in how I defend myself on my back with some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and submission grappling. And then what did he do? He won a UFC. He proved that all he needed to do is defend these arts and keep from them getting on the ground, and his superior striking will stand out. And he proved that. But there was so many. Like I said, the myth has already been bred into the sport. It became this MMA sport, which became as you know now, a martial art on its own that was basically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, submission grappling, wrestling, and some very primitive striking. They considered this was the martial art of MMA. And they considered this to be superior, and Maurice Smith, that type of thing, that was the exception rather than the rule. But it inspired, like I said, it inspired a lot of kickboxers, Muay Thai practitioners to realize, okay, all I got to do is put together the steps. Okay, I got A, I go through a letter A. If I want to get to where I'm at C, I got to put together A and B first, the foundation. So I give me some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or some submission, you know, learn that. I learned the grappling on my back, then I learned the wrestling, the takedown defense, and then I know how to scrap and strike. And these fighters and these Muay Thai and K1 fighters have started coming in. And these are starting being dominant. Anderson Silva's, your Crow Cop, Thiago Alves. And then you get into where you get the karate strikers coming in. The GSP, the Machitas coming in. And this is basically what has come on. These people who are strikers, who's learning how to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, who's learning how to wrestle, but now, like I said, once I learned to defend and keep these styles, my advantage is now with my hands. And this is where it's going to. And a lot of these are even, hold on a second, are even pushing themselves even beyond that point, which is Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machida going into some Aikido, and then we even bring up like DJ Penn, who comes from that old culture of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wrestling, but he never could get over the top. And then what he'd do, start training boxing. And he started training by emphasizing striking more, and what happened? He started to dominate. He started to dominate, you know, and he became a legend. Why? Because of his superior striking. Josh Koscheck, another one, come from wrestling, but started learning boxing. His level went up. I mean, all of these fighters, this is what is going to happen. The wrestler, grappler, those days are over, okay? And now you're going to have to emphasize more striking. You see it like as I've shown you all the way through this, as when the Muay Thai people have come in, the Rich Franklins, and they were dominating, and then these higher level people who are going into boxing, Aikido, Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machida, GSP, these are the highest level people. The people who are the more dynamic strikers are the people dominating. John Jones, even Cain Velasquez, dominate strikers. They even come from wrestling backgrounds and stuff like that. They have that foundation, but they know their advantage comes from their striking and their dynamic. This sets up their takedowns and stuff like that. This is putting together a complete game, and these are the ones that's dominating. And you see how it's come from an evolution, from being like a baby, being on your back, you know what I'm saying, to getting up, being on your knees wrestling, and to now standing up, you know what I'm saying, just straight banging in a very, that banging Muay Thai style, until you get into some more sophisticated styles that are going to go into traditional style. And which, like I said, like I've proven, these traditional styles were working, but they proved that they had holes. And over these years, of course, the styles have, seen this, MMA, seen the impact of MMA, and they've learned about grappling and ground fighting and stuff like that, so they've learned to incorporate these things, and you're going to see a lot more traditional techniques come in. You're going to see a lot more traditionalists come in, and they're going to be effective. These arts have been proven to be effective over the years of war and in their cultures, and also they're still being proven this day, because a lot of these instructors and masters from, karates, kung fu's, your salats, your kali, they, they still there in Krav Maga. They're instructors, teaching special police or special forces or secret services. So these people are dealing with it every day. Krav Maga, Israeli military, special forces, police, everybody Krav Maga, and they definitely are using this every day. So the stuff works. Now, you don't have a lot of Krav Maga people in MMA, you don't have a lot of Kung Fu, because, like I said, this was a culture that was built out of grappling culture, so more grapplers stuck to this, and more of the strikers stayed away from it, especially after these myths had started being perpetuated by it. And it was easy to start believing these myths because of the situation. But as I'm showing you right now, those are going to be broken and proven. And I think I pretty much explained of how these myths were, were developed, and how you could see that they're not necessarily true. It proves that, yeah, you have to have some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, some grappling background to be full, because it's definitely a practical thing. So you have to deal with the more practical thing, the thing that somebody's going to be easier to try to get at you, so you have to learn how to defend against that. And if you get, work at it for a couple of years, you should be proficient enough to defend yourself and be in a good position not to get yourself in that position, especially if you're working on good striking and understanding how to keep yourself from getting in that situation. But definitely the strikers and striking will dominate MMA for the future on. And these fighters that refuse to step their game up and try to fight, because I've had plenty of them argue with me, because they're still in this style war. Their style is MMA, and their style is inside that MMA is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the wrestling, grappling, and the primitive striking. Now they brought into Muay Thai. I mean, I think that Muay Thai is the only way that you can strike and stuff like that, but they're proving that there's different ways to strike. There's other techniques that are going to work. Like I said, you just have to break out of this, MMA, dogma that, all I have to do is keep training this grappling, keep training this wrestling 75%, and then I'll just, still keep with this primitive striking, and somehow I'm going to become a champion. Somehow I'm going to become the cut above the rest, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I've had plenty argue that, this is 80, 70%. It's not. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, so if you want to open up your game, if you want to bring, you're gonna have to get out of this dogmatic thinking. Like I said, this is the evolution of what's going on. So basically, if you want to become top notch, you're going to have to emphasize striking more, and you're going to have to go deeper into experience in striking. You're going to have to try to become very skilled. It's not a byproduct. It should be one of the main factors of it. I mean, at least 50% of your training should be striking, and as it gets more and more, go year 5, 10 years, it's going to become more. It's going to become more, and you're going to see mostly fighting with people, standing up. And most of the grappling and wrestling will have to be learned, but it will just be a byproduct of the striking. Okay? And this is where the evolution will go from one end to the other end. Okay? So please give me your comments out there, and have a nice day.